Welcome to the channel as we start another story from the Creepy Tales playlist. In the darkness, stories take shape. Some are whispered from the shadows, others echoed from places you should never go. These are the echoes of the unknown, tales of horror, suspense, and fear that lingers. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones you can't explain. The ones you don't want to know exist. Let's begin. The forest swallowed the light as 5 friends stepped out of their cars, the towering pines swaying gently in the cool breeze. Megan, Jake, Laura, Chris, and Sarah had planned this weekend for months. A camping trip deep in the untouched wilderness, far from the noise and chaos of the city. The lake stretched before them like a vast, polished mirror, perfectly still, reflecting the gray sky above. Jake whistled, tossing his backpack onto the ground. Perfect spot. No tourist, no noise, just us and nature. He didn't notice the uneasy glance Sarah gave the lake calm surface. Laura laughed, setting up the tent while Chris started a small fire. Megan wandered to the water's edge, brushing her fingertips against the glassy surface. A ripple spread, but it seemed slow, unnatural. "Hey, come back here," Jake called. "We're missing the fun." Megan pulled her hand back, shaking off the cold, damp feeling. But something lingered, an unsettling quiet, as if the forest were holding its breath. As the sun dipped below the tree line, the sky bled orange, and shadows stretched across the lake. Jake knelt by the water, cupping his hands to drink, but froze. His reflection stared back, but the eyes were wrong, wide, glaring, twisted with silent rage. His stomach dropped, and he jerked back, nearly falling. When he looked again, his reflection was normal, a pale, startled version of himself. "Hey, you okay?" Chris called, walking over the grin. Jake laughed it off, wiping his wet hands on his jeans. "Yeah, just weird water." Megan was watching from the fire, her gaze fixed on the lake. She saw something move beneath the surface, a shadow, a shape. But when she blinked, it was gone. "Jake, come back. It's getting dark," she called, trying to keep the fear from her voice. Jake turned, brushing off the cold chill that seemed to cling to him. But he didn't look back at the lake. Darkness fell, thick and absolute, the moon hiding behind dense clouds. The campfire crackled, sending up faint, spiraling embers. The friends swapped stories, laughter echoing into the night. But as the flames died down, the laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence. Then came the sound of faint, rhythmic splashing from the lake, too steady to be the wind. Chris leaned forward, squinting into the darkness. "Probably just a fish," he muttered, though his voice lacked confidence. But the splashing didn't stop. It grew louder, almost deliberate. Megan felt the hair on her arms rise. "Guys, maybe we should check it out." Jake grabbed the flashlight, but as he shone it toward the lake, the water was still, an undisturbed, perfect mirror. "See, nothing," he smirked. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. He tossed a small rock into the water, and ripples spread slowly, too slowly. The forest seemed to lean in, listening. Morning came with a pale gray light seeping through the mist. Sarah was the first to wake, drawn to the lake's silent surface. It was a habit. She loved the calm of early mornings. But as she leaned over, the mist parted, and her reflection appeared. Her breath caught in her throat, her face was gone. Just a blank, smooth surface stared back. Her body reflected, but her head an empty, pale blur. Her scream shattered the stillness. Megan and Laura rushed to her side, finding her pale, shaking, pointing at the lake. But the mist shifted, and her reflection returned, clear and normal. I swear it was gone. My face was gone, Sarah stammered, clutching Megan's arm. Jake chuckled, rubbing his eyes. Maybe you were still half asleep. But Megan didn't laugh. She looked at the lake, watching the mist swirl, feeling its cold presence like a hand resting on her shoulder. By afternoon, the group's mood was tense. Laura and Chris decided to take the canoe out, hoping a little distance from camp would calm their nerves. They paddled out, their laughter forced. But as they drifted in the lake's center, silence fell again. Laura leaned over, trailing her fingers in the water, but then froze. Just beneath the canoe, faces stared up, pale, distorted faces pressed against the lake's surface, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide and empty. Her scream echoed across the lake, and she nearly tipped the canoe. Chris glanced down, seeing nothing at first, but then one of the faces moved, its mouth twisting, pressing against the underside of the water, as though trying to break free. Row back now, Laura screamed, her voice cracking. They paddled frantically, the canoe rocking as the faces beneath them swirled and clawed. When they reached shore, Lara stumbled out, gasping, her eyes locked on the lake. They're under there. They're watching us. Back on shore, Laura's panicked breathing echoed through the silent campsite. We need to leave now, she shouted, her voice sharp with fear. Jake rolled his eyes, but his own hands shook. It was just shadows in the water. Nothing down there. Shadows? They're faces. I saw them, Laura's voice cracked. And Megan stepped between them. Okay, everyone, calm down. We're all just tired. But she didn't believe her own words. The air felt colder, the mist never quite lifting from the lake. Sarah sat by the fire, staring at the water, her face pale. Chris tried to lighten the mood. It's a lake. Water does weird things. Let's just have dinner and sleep. But the wind picked up, carrying a faint, distant whisper. Megan's eyes darted to the lake, where ripples spread out from nowhere. The forest around them seemed darker. The towering trees twisted like shadows. They should leave tonight, Laura whispered, clutching her arms, but the others ignored her, choosing denial over fear. Night swallowed the campsite again, the mist creeping closer to the fire's glow. Megan and Chris sat by the crackling flames, trying to joke about city life, but the laughter was forced. Jake and Laura argued in hushed tones, Laura refusing to leave her tent. Suddenly, the wind rustled the trees, but it was a still night. Megan's flashlight swept over the forest. Empty. But then she saw it, a figure, pale and faint, half visible through the mist. It was watching them, its hollow eyes locked on the campsite. She gasped, stumbling back. Chris shone his light, but the figure was gone. Sarah stared at the lake, her face expressionless. They're waiting, she whispered. The wind seemed to carry her words, a faint, whispering echo. Jake's flashlight flickered, then died. The whispers rose, a faint, distorted chorus. Swirling with the mist, the friends huddled closer. Fear was a tight knot in their chest. Panic shattered their silence. Pack up, we're leaving now, Laura shouted, dragging her backpack to the car. Jake jumped in the driver's seat, twisting the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. He tried again. Nothing. Chris ran his hands through his hair, pacing. We'll hike out. We're not that far from the road. Megan grabbed her flashlight, but it flickered weakly. Stay together, okay? She whispered, her voice tight. They set off into the forest, the narrow trail winding through twisting trees, but the mist seemed thicker, curling around their feet, muffling their footsteps. Jake led the way, but the whispers grew louder, circling them, faint and distorted. This isn't right, Laura whimpered, clutching Sarah's arm. The path twisted, narrowing, the trees leaning closer. Jake stopped, his breath catching. Wait, we've been here. We're going in circles. Megan looked back. The lake was visible through the trees, but closer now, impossibly closer. We can't leave, Sarah whispered, her voice cold. They won't let us. One by one, they vanished. Jake ran ahead, flashlight swinging wildly, but his voice cut off in a strangled cry. Chris charged after him, shouting Jake's name, but the mist swallowed him. Megan grabbed Sarah, pulling her back towards the campsite, but the fog was thicker now, swirling like pale fingers around them. Megan, please, I don't want to die here, Laura sobbed, stumbling behind them. Megan tried to speak, but whispers drowned her voice, 1,000 murmurs overlapping, distorted. They broke into a run, the lake's dark, glassy surface seeming to loom closer with every step. Laura's scream tore through the mist, then fell silent. Megan turned, but Laura was gone. Just Sarah, standing still, her eyes wide and empty. They're calling, she whispered. Megan grabbed her, shaking her, but Sarah's body went limp, crumbling into the mist, her face twisting into something pale and inhuman. Megan staggered back, staring at the lake, where the twisted faces were clearer now. Laura, Jake, Chris, and Sarah, their mouths open and silent screams pressing against the surface. 3 days later, Ranger Ellis drove his ATV along the forest's narrow trails, scanning for signs of the missing campers. Their families had reported them missing, and the ranger knew the lake was a popular but dangerous spot. His radio crackled with static, the dense mist hanging thick over the water. He found the campsite, tents still pitched, firewood stacked neatly, but no sign of the campers. A cold chill swept over him as he stepped closer. Backpacks, shoes, even phones lay scattered around the campfire untouched. The car was there too, keys in the ignition, but dead. Ellis's eyes drifted to the lake, its surface a perfect mirror, reflecting the misty sky. But as he stepped closer, he saw it. Faint, twisted faces staring up from beneath the water. His heart pounded, his hand reaching for his radio, but the static rose, and beneath it, whispers slithered. Soft, distorted voices whispering his name. His hands shook, the mist curling closer, pressing against him. He staggered back, his breathing ragged, but when he blinked, the faces were gone. The lake silent and still. The radio whispered again, a faint, distorted voice echoing. And now it was clearer, almost like someone calling for help. Next time you're home, all alone, or in the woods, and you hear those things that go bump in the night, sometimes they're best left alone.